Absolutely.
All right. All right, so here we go. For Artifact 3A, I mean, you didn't get anything lower than a 3. I think for the most part, you're good to go. In the synthesis of course readings and resources, for some of your actions, I was just curious if some of the actions were research based or if it was like a brainstorming type activity that you had done with your group. Honestly, either way, I think you're good to go. I was just curious there. Rubric requirements, once again, great job. Little clarification on terms like teams, and that's just because I'm not an elementary person. When I was in middle school, I had the kind of the team concept, but I didn't know if that was like the same thing as middle and elementary. So that was kind of my thing. And I think I had jotted a couple other little examples down, but I remember that was the big one. Everything all the way down to alignment with the descriptors. I thought you met all the descriptors. May just like go back in and maybe I missed them. Just maybe cite some of the descriptors. Brag on yourself a little bit because you definitely met them all. Just maybe go in and say, hey, because I did this meets descriptor. What was it, 3A2 or something like that? That was kind of a big one or whatever. But that's 3A. Okay, short, sweet, to the point.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right, good job. Seriously. 3B. All right. I don't know if you've looked at the review yet or not, but I broke the rules a little bit. I
liked your comment about that.
I went 3.5, and honestly, I really probably should have gone 3.5 on 3A as well, because once again, my question was, is it research based or was it a group consensus decision brainstorming? And I think once again, either way, you're good to go. And I didn't think it was a 3, and I wasn't sure if it was a 4. So you know what? I made up my own rules. 3.5. Good job.
I like that, you rebel.
Right, absolutely. Hey, teacher of the year, I can do whatever I want. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
No. All right. Mechanics and grammar on this one were fine. The only reason I went with a 3 is I noticed some of the double spacing may have gotten off in a couple little areas. Like it started out single space and then double space. That's an easy fix. That's an easy 4 right there. And that was 3B. I thought it was really good. Nitpicking a little bit, just kind of describe research-based or group brainstorm. Good?
Gotcha. Yes, thank you.
All right, Kimberly, you ready?
Yeah, how about I go ahead, Shannon, and share what I had for you.
Okay.
Let me pull, I have everybody's open, so let me just make sure I'm looking at yours and not Lee's here. Give me a second to move this over. Let's see. Okay, so really on the rubric I gave you, the research was good. It was all in place. You cited several different sources, so everything was good with that. The part of it being successfully unpacked, we're talking about A, correct?
Yes.
And so on that one, was there anything that you had a question about on that?
That I had a question about mine or about yours? I'm sorry.
Yeah, about yours.
No, not that I can think of off the top of my head. I think the only thing I was not sure about was whether or not I was meeting the requirements, to be honest with you. Like I got a little bit confused as to whether or not I went too far towards the
communication.
Yeah.
I think really and truly, I kind of went back and forth with that too. And I've actually I haven't revised my ideas. I did do a follow-up survey to kind of really make the connection between communication and the reading program. But I still did stick with the fact that reading is going to be the ultimate goal, because we don't have a school climate goal. We have 3 goals. we have a PBIS goal, and we have 2 academic goals. So I think that you could go either way with it, really. When I went back and I read it, I think you can interpret it, and I think that's a part of this process, is taking on that leadership and problem solving and seeing how do you see it. And I think in your situation, you were able to specifically hone in on communication with internal stakeholders and external.
Yeah.
But I think like how Lee did it, it was a little bit different. He kind of looked at the communication within just the internal, and then how that affected the climate and the outcome of different things within the school. And then he looked at communication with the stakeholders on the outside. And that's kind of, I think, how I looked at it too. But I really think either way could have worked.
Okay.
So I think for that rubric, I put you down as far as like unpacking it, that you had a 3. And I think the only thing I mentioned was that there were a couple little places where you analyzed the data, but the second short-term goal was a little bit fuzzy. I couldn't picture exactly what it looked like.
Okay.
So you might just want to add a couple details there. It was definitely obvious that you problem solved. I gave you a couple of little things I saw as far as typos or a word that was like smashed with another word. You need a space, little stuff like that, just to kind of help you out if you want to go back to fix those. And then I think that the only other thing I again mentioned with the alignment with the descriptors was that kind of just clear up a little bit your short-term goal, like a little more specific about that short-term goal.
Okay.
And that was it. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go ahead and work on B?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. It's interchangeable. I call it B. I call it the second part. The one thing I mentioned on the course readings and using the research, you did make a good statement on page 8 at the end of the first paragraph that drives home the point about parents. But I do remember something that somebody had said, I think maybe Dr. Neal had said in one of the emails, or maybe it was Dr. Stedman that I met with, that said that everything you say, try to back it up with some research. If it's a good statement and you're trying to really solidify this is why you're doing this or why you're saying this, find a little piece of evidence. On the rubric, this is the other one. I did give you 3, but I kind of thought maybe a 2, but I was kind of like Lee. The last descriptor in the rubric, I went back and looked at it, and it mentions conducting formative evaluations of the process. I didn't see anything in your paper that kind of said what your plans were for evaluating this down the line. Like, are you going to send a survey out in the beginning of the quarter? Like if you do the PBIS training in May, are you going to send something out in September to kind of see how that worked for teacher?
Okay.
Something like that.
Okay.
Some of the examples I saw that we had been given, like I got by Dr. Stedman, the people had in those papers had talked about what they're going to do down the road.
Okay.
And also, it was a little unclear about the school-wide matrix. I'm not sure. I couldn't tell from that if it's the students that are going to be using it or the teachers that are going to use that matrix. So maybe a little bit more about that.
Okay.
And how that matrix is going to literally tie back to improve student conduct. Are they going to rate that, and then the students are going to get like positive tokens if their matrix looks a certain way? I didn't get. I'm sure it is going to connect. I just couldn't tell how from the writing.
Okay.
So that just might lead to stronger connections between the objectives and the recommendation.
Okay.
Okay. That's really it for that one. For B was just a little bit more detail about short-term, long-term, specifically those areas that just I couldn't tell was it geared towards the teacher or the student?
Okay.
Okay. And then the future, how you're going to kind of look at it down the road.
Okay.
Okay. That's it. It was great, and I love the ideas, and I really like how you broke down the data, and I really believe, you had a good point about school leadership. It's more than just the school leadership. The teachers in the school are leaders too.
Okay. Okay.
That was really good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to go next and do something? I'm kind of out of the flow of what order we're going in. Okay.
That's all good.
Okay. I've got both of them sitting here, but I was going to go ahead and start. Lee, I'll go back to you.
That's fine.
One of the things that really kind of stands out when you write things for me is there's a very real voice in what you're saying. You can hear your voice in it. It doesn't seem like you're writing a professional paper, and it's not that it's not professional. It's just really true. It's the real you, and it's I like that part. It's very reflective. The whole thing, all the way through part A, I feel like you're constantly reflecting back, and I think that's a really strong part of your style. I got hung up a little bit on where you decided your gaps were between the two, internal and external,
yeah,
and how you know what those gaps are. I looked at the overall statements that you were making in there. I guess I just got a little bit confused on some of how you were making the connection between the internal and external communication.
Yep.
And that correlation between what you were doing with your group, like how you know. I had it written down perfectly, and now I can't find it. But how do you know that whatever you're doing in this school, it's because of
the communication gaps?
Yeah, like it's the
Right.
Parents are saying one thing and the teachers are saying another. How do you know that it's because of a communication gap as opposed to something else?
Okay.
I think that was where I got stuck on yours. It was just, and it's not that there couldn't be a correlation, but I think if you're going to make the statement, you've got to bring that together more, just so that you can really tell that that's what you're seeing. So again, it's there. I just think you need to bring it out more.
Okay.
There were some real tiny nitpicky things about, graphs being a little bolder in print.
Okay.
Or a little larger because I can't see them, but that's, again, possibly just my eyes. I think
No, because I said the same. It was kind of like that for me too. And I wasn't trying to be nitpicky, but I was just looking at the numbers, and it was almost like a little fuzzy. So maybe if you could just open it up a little.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think that was all. I think looking at what are your current communications between the external, like how do you go about meeting with with the parents, businesses, what strategies are already in place to make sure that the communication between internal and external is good, because I'm sure that you already have things going on, but I felt like you could maybe elaborate a little bit more on what those were. I love the research. There were some parts in there that you had researched that I had not heard of or seen before, which were really interesting. It was a little confusing on page 4 and 5. Just one section was talking about the research, and then another one started talking about the background, and maybe separating those two pieces out would help to clarify that. The short-term goals, I love the ideas on the short-term goals. The long-term goal looked great. It looked very involved. And I know, in terms of just how to manage all of these different pieces along the way, that one looked pretty detailed, which that's not a bad thing. It's just going to be a little bit more on you.
It's going to be busy.
Yes, down the road. And again, the reflections were great on all of that. I'll go ahead and do your second part, 3B.
Real quick question. So the main thing is kind of bring out where the gaps are and communicate. That seems to be the main. Is that?
Yeah. When I look at the communication piece, and again, like Kim said, it could just be a difference in interpretation.
Right.
But everything that I kept looking at, the main component was an evaluation of the internal communication and the external communication. So where are the gaps? Okay. Who's not getting information and why? Right. Is sort of how I interpreted that. And so again, if that's how you want to interpret it, then I would just say that you would need more you verbally need to give me more narration maybe of how you're making that connection.
Okay.
That was the biggest part for me. And like I said, I don't know that I'm right about that. So if you, I said the same thing to Kim, like if you
No
go,
problem.
if you feel like the way you went with it, don't change that, because I don't want to be the reason you went the wrong way. And I'm the one who's going to be messed
No,
up.
I looked at what you had for your survey. It looked good. So yeah, I mean, I get it. No problem. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify. That's all.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think you know, when you get ready to talk about mine, I already know where I kind of know what you're going to say.
You want me to do yours A now, and then I can kind of knock both
Do
A's?
both B's. That's fine, because I know mine was along the same line, so I can tell you quickly kind of how I revised it. I just sort of looked at, okay, my results should be improved reading, because that is a SIP goal. That is tied to a SIP goal. But I went back. We don't have a specific school goal related to parental involvement, but we do have a district goal that simply just says parental involvement. It's believed that parental involvement should and will improve the student's learning.
And that's,
So I took that communication to improving their learning, and that really, and here's my point, and I put this in the paper, I added this into the paper. I actually found a quote, and it was from the Center of Education Health and Center for School Education and Health. And what it said is that positive school climate and student achievement are so intertwined that positive school climate can affect student achievement, but student achievement can affect school climate. And so I just kind of went back to the communication between external and internal stakeholders needs to improve so that our reading programs improve.
and I think on page 8 in yours, and this is A. This is the part A that we're talking about. But on page 8, you kind of started to bring it together more for me. But it was so far down into it that the prior to that, I was almost kind of getting hung up on and looking for where the gaps are. And honestly, now that you've said about the SIT team goals not having a goal about the stakeholder piece, that might almost be something worth reflecting on, because like I know in our school, each of our goals has to be based on the county goal. And when we revised our SIT plan a few years back, we had a similar situation where we didn't have a goal that supported the county goal, and we had to go back and almost redo as per the policy and the board and all that kind of stuff. So it would just be interesting to bring that up as a reflective piece in your assignment, to note the fact that you don't actually have it, and that in and of itself
Could be something we want to look at.
Yeah. Because that could even become down the road a goal to work towards, to try to make that happen. Because that's the one thing I kind of got really sidetracked trying to figure out where was that. And then I'm trying to look at the reflections on your survey. I like those a lot. Your read-ins, your accountable book talk. Those things were, I thought, really great goals and doable things that you could do. I think, again, I get what you're saying with your link with student achievement. I know what you're saying about if the reading program is well done and the teachers are sharing it with the parents, then you would see that the parents would then be able to talk about the reading program.
And if the students are achieving, the parents are going to feel better about how the teacher's servicing their students. The teachers are going to be excited that we are showing growth in an area. And that ultimately is going to improve the climate in and around the school. You know, they get those scores back. They see they're making an impact. And then that builds on their confidence, that builds on their beliefs in what we can do at the school and what we're doing for students, which ultimately, and then of course the students feel better about themselves because they're improving and they're showing growth. And so it's sort of all, and that's the piece of research I added when I went back and revised, that when all those things are in place, school climate naturally improves.
And that honestly, that could even start leading you into 5.
Okay, yeah, because I started looking at that too.
5 is very heavy climate.
Yeah.
That's, that was, I guess, the only thing is just trying to keep in mind the focus of this one being communication gaps.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I've done
A.
your A and Lee's A. Does someone, you want me to keep going and do the 2 Bs?
Sure, go ahead. Why not?
Can you tell Lee how much time we have?
No, I was looking for it just a second ago, and I didn't see
it. Usually does like a 10-minute warning.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, so we haven't hit that yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so Lee, your part B, again, your summary was great. I love that you included the history of your administration. Maybe give a little bit more about the teacher administration. What do the teacher leadership, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Your leaders, in other words, like how do the teachers lead things in your school? Do they have departments and all that kind of stuff? The details of your data collection, I think were great. Maybe give a little bit of a background on the purpose of the teacher working condition survey. They have like a research page that you can just kind of look at.
It was really good. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Just talk maybe about the teacher retention piece. How did your team analyze? You did a better job of that when you talked about the strengths and weaknesses. But maybe give me some specific steps that you used to analyze the data. Sure. Like we did this, then we did that, almost like a little bit of a step-by-step of how you broke the data down, what areas you looked at.
Sure.
And then with your data snapshots, you did a quick, short, like 2-sentence summary narrative for time, but then you didn't do it for the other constructs.
Okay.
And it almost would have helped if you would have done just a little bit with each of those data snapshots.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Because I had to, the first one, I didn't really even have to read your data if I didn't want to. I could just kind of get the gist of it by reading
I'm with
it.
you now. Okay, yeah.
The rest, I'm trying to eyeball all the data.
So look back at time for examples for the other ones.
Yeah. If you did it with time for data snapshots, I would just do something similar with the other ones. And other than that, that's pretty much it. I mean, some of the recommendations, I had some little comments about, just questions, who will supervise, some of the different activity ideas you had in your recommendations.
Right.
And how you were going to enforce the teachers in the hall. I mentioned that because I've been down that road before, and I know what happens. It starts off, and then everybody starts to go back into the halls.
Which is exactly what we've seen. So, yeah, that's a very good point.
And again, just reflecting on it would even be enough.
Absolutely.
Kim, I'm sorry, and it was a great piece of work. Both of them were great pieces of work. I think you did a great job with them. There were just some areas to look at. And then Kim, your part B, the big thing I got hung up with yours was why you didn't use the 214 data.
I did. That was a typo.
Oh, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I wonder if she doesn't realize that.
I saw that and I was like, what? And I went and I looked and I'm like, I don't know why I typed that, but I was comparing 2012 to 2014. So that was the most current.
Oh, and that makes a whole lot more sense. Disregard
I think
that.
I wanted to be younger than I am. I think that's what that's about.
Of course.
Like, we can't be in 2016. I can't be looking at 2014.
That was too fun. Okay, that clarifies that. But
yes.
Never mind.
And I promise you that is not, like, I'm not making that up. I typed it wrong, but I compared 2012 to 2014, and I pulled, when I talked about each of the weaknesses, and I was talking about we had a drastic drop, I was talking about from 2012 to 2014.
Okay.
I went back and fixed that in my paper.
Okay. In terms of the background, I would describe your leadership organization that you currently have. Like how is leadership run in your school? Who's in charge of kind of the, what areas? And again, your teacher leadership. Where are the teachers involved in decision-making processes for leadership? Detail the procedures and steps, again, you used for your data team, like who did what, kind of how did you break the data down? Recommendations were great. I like the way you organized the recommendations. Again, teacher leadership. You were talking about empowering. I got a little bit confused on that. Clarify how you will empower.
Because my job as an instructional coach, which I did go back and add in a paragraph about this after you mentioned that, my job as an instructional coach is that I am to do walkthroughs every single week. And I have to not only identify practices that need improvement, but identify best practices. And so what I'm going to do to empower teachers, I'm going to allow them to take on and encourage them as a coach to take on a leadership responsibility or role by, as I go through I always give written feedback about what I see when I'm in their rooms observing and saying, okay, I notice this is a best practice. This is something we're working on with reading. This is something you do really well. Would you mind sharing how you teach this at the next staff meeting?
Okay.
And also if they need a little help preparing for that staff meeting, like, well, it's going to be a little 10-minute sharing time of best practices. And so, if they want me to kind of walk them through, well, what exactly about my lesson was so good, I can point those things out to them. And then they would just they're going to stand up and do a little 10-minute presentation of those things that they did in their classroom that were beneficial that other teachers could learn from.
Okay.
And show an example.
It makes sense. I think I would just maybe clarify it more in the paper.
Okay.
Just the way you just explained it makes sense. I think maybe
Okay.
I just didn't get it in the wordage.
And I think it was too because I really didn't explain that in my role. That's part of my job every day.
Yeah.
I have to go through classrooms, get feedback on teaching and good instruction, and then what can be done to make it better or why it's already great. And then try to build the capacity of others through those teacher leaders. And so I thought about if that teacher doesn't feel comfortable standing up, maybe videotaping them if they let me videotape them.
Okay.
And then ship that.
Okay. Yeah, we've got our 10 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it was great. I think you both did a great job. I feel like I'm being the picky person when I'm going through it, but I'm trying the best I can to help everybody, in the area. So great job. I'm done.
All right. Kimberly, I'll go ahead and do your 2. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
All right. 3A.
Maybe where it hurts.
Actually,
kidding.
no, you're good. I thought everything looked good. Going down to the rubric, I gave you a 4 there because I thought you were good to go because you tied it in. You said this data will help us determine if teachers and other staff are properly communicating. I think for me that's where you tied everything in. For quality, I had to go with a 3, and it may be just because I didn't quite understand what you were saying. You had put something about 16% male and 19% female, and I didn't quite.
That was a typo too.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm typing some of the stuff at midnight. I went back and fixed that. It's actually 6. That was the percentage of males and females that passed both the reading and math EOG in 2014.
Okay, all right.
It wasn't the percentage of kids in the population.
I'm like, what kind of kids you got running around?
We're not sure about the rest. No, I'm kidding.
All right.
We think they came from Mars.
I can guarantee a lot of high schoolers do. All right, and the only other thing is the first time I saw something about the teacher working condition.
I fixed that.
Okay, cool. All right, then.
I wrote it out. You're talking about the abbreviation?
That's it. Yes, ma'am.
I wrote it out.
Yep, that's it. And I liked alignment with descriptors. I like how you had that extra section on 3A too. I remember that time we talked. You were slightly concerned about that. I think you got it.
Okay.
All right. 3B with rubric and requirement. I went with a 3 because my question is how will you know that your recommendations have worked? Are you going to do some type of follow up, something like that? But go ahead.
I was just going to say, I did put that at the end of the paper. I looked back, and at the very end, I just put that in the beginning of 2016, we would do some formative surveys or plus deltas, that kind of thing. But what I did is I took that piece and I moved it up sooner into the paper.
Perfect.
To make sure it was evident that that's how we were going to follow through later on. Okay,
perfect. That sounds great. The only other thing is on this one was quality, and I maybe should have put this in research. I'll be honest, every now and then I get a little confused as to where to put some of this stuff. But anyway, it's feedback. For quality, I went with a 3 because, once again, love the recommendations. but how did some of these recommendations develop? Research, brainstorming, may have just been something I missed. Either way, once again, I think you're good.
Okay.
You know, I think when you sit down with a team of professionals and you brainstorm an idea, I think that's credible.
I think
but
so.
just let me know. Either way, you're good to go. And
Okay.
that's really all I had.
Okay. Well, I did write it. We did kind of brainstorm, and we had kind of hashed out a couple of ideas, but I did add that in. That was good feedback. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
And then Lee, have I given you yours?
We don't know what we're doing.
I don't think so. I need to make a list next time and check us off.
I know.
I don't think that I gave Lee yours.
That's
So
all right, go ahead.
I'm going to go through yours real quick. And if this sounds like you've heard it before, then I have given it to you. Okay.
All right.
I think, did I give you A? Lord have mercy.
All right. 4's all the way. All right. Well, you guys have a great night.
No, here we go.
By default, I like it.
I think that I'm trying to just double check. Oh, okay. I haven't talked to you about yours.
Okay. That's fine.
The only thing I looked at was that I thought I wanted to talk about was the alignment with the descriptors.
Okay.
I was able to identify descriptors. The descriptors, my question was, what are the future plans for evaluating the recommendations that if you're going to put these in place?
Okay.
So whatever things you've recommended, what are those future plans? That goes back to kind of what I said with Shannon, where that very last descriptor mentions your future evaluation recommendation kind of thing of how you're going to it was listed as formative evaluation, formative ongoing evaluation.
Okay.
So just think about that. Also, from what I kind of understood from A, we did have to identify and offer recommendations that align to school leadership. Was your leadership strong in every single descriptor on the teacher working conditions survey, so that nothing needed to be addressed in that area? I was just wondering, because it looked like in our descriptor we might have had to sort of mention that. So just go back and check that.
Under leadership for the TWC?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And that's it.
Okay.
That's it. I just thought we specifically sort of had to kind of look at how the school leadership was tied into that TWC, and then kind of make some suggestions towards the leadership of our school. So I didn't know if everything under specifically school leadership looked perfect or not.
Okay.
It didn't look like it did, but then you didn't mention it at all. So
yeah, everything's not perfect. So basically I need to go in and find the weakest point and go from there.
maybe.
Right, okay.
Just pull that in, or you can look at the descriptor, and if you interpret it differently, don't.
Okay.
I don't know that it'll make or break, but I do remember something.
That's
about
fine. Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
it. Okay. That's it for those.
Okay. All right. So I guess I will stop the recording. Everybody good?
Yep.
Yes.
Any last words? No. All right. Here we go.